OpenAI has officially announced the release of GPT 4.1, and in this video, we are going to be talking about the benefits here, specifically related to AI agents. And I want to give some live examples at the end of this video, as well as going over all the benefits. Now, before we get into this, I think it's absolutely hilarious that they have regressed from their 4.5 series down to 4.1, because obviously they're probably sitting in a boardroom being like, holy crap, we can't keep going at this pace. We gotta bring it back, because we don't want to be going up to 5.0 until we have some like major announcement to release. So they're just essentially buying themselves more time. Now, regarding this series of models, there's three of them. So there's GPT 4.1, there's 4.1 mini, and there's also 4.1 nano. And essentially, in their own words, this excels in three areas. First of all, it excels in coding, and then it excels in instruction following, and then long context. So essentially, obviously, if you want it to code for you, there's going to be major benefits in the improved technology as well as instruction following too. So like, it's just going to get better at understanding what it is that you actually want, right? Because there's a lot of, like when you type in a prompt, for example, in ChatGPT, there's a lot of nuances in what you say in it. Sometimes it's hard for AI to fully recognize what it is that you're actually looking for, because there could be like lots of different potential answers to your questions. And it's just getting better at really understanding what it is you're looking for. And then, of course, long form context means that the actual data that you can play around with is just a lot more. So, these models now have a 1 million token limit. What that means is that now you can process large data files, maybe a large CSV file, maybe you have a large book that you want to process, or just larger quantities of data in general. It can now process, which makes it super deadly, super powerful. And so those are essentially the three main things that it excels at from OpenAI's perspective. But I think that there's just so much more. Now, the first thing that I want to go over is that this is actually an API model, which means that it's not going to be released inside ChatGPT. So if you're to go in here and try and play around with it, you're not actually going to have access to this, unfortunately. And so the only people that have access to this are the people that are using the API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. It's essentially what people use when they're custom coding, or when they're building custom web apps or tools or whatever. Other people can access this API through using technology like N8N. And so N8N, for those of you who don't know it, and I'll just go over to N8N's website here, is a tool to automate things. And it's for allowing people to do programming things as non-programmers. So it's no-code tools to automate your life. And so what a tool like this does is it allows you to plug into that API automatically without having to know any of the technical know-how on how these integrations actually work. So if I was to log into N8N, which is in front of me right now, and I wanted to pull in like a model, I have access to all of these GPT models. And specifically, I have access to all of the new 4.1 models here at my disposal that I could use right now moving forward. So that's really cool. And these models have a lot of benefits. The first one is going to be the intelligence and the latency. Now, what I find absolutely hilarious about OpenAI is that these guys are just like, they're so good at developing groundbreaking technology and like developing super complicated systems, but they're also very good at developing super complicated models like this, where you just look at it and you're like, what the hell are they even trying to say? There's almost no information on either one of the axes. And the first time I looked at this, I was thinking to myself, like, what the hell are these guys trying to say? But anyways, in a nutshell, what's going on here is that it's just comparing the intelligence based on the latency. And when they say latency here, this is just essentially saying like, how long does it, you can think of it like, how long does it take to process your request? Are you sitting there waiting a second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds for the information to be returned to you? Like, how long are you waiting? And so in a nutshell, they're comparing 4.1 to 4.0. And you can see that 4.1 is more intelligent than 4.0 because it is scoring higher on the intelligence. And conversely, they have models that are even faster or lower latency. Now, 1-for-1, 4.1 and 4.0 are kind of like pretty much on par in terms of latency. Same with 4.1 mini and 4.0 mini. those are kind of more or less pretty similar. Obviously, 4.0 is a bit faster, but at the expense of way less intelligence. And then lastly, we have 4.1 nano down here, which is a bit less intelligent, but way faster than 4.0 mini as well. And so that's something worth noting, because obviously when you're dealing with these models in the real world, speed does matter, and obviously intelligence does matter as well. And we're going to be getting into that in the examples at the end of the video as well. The next thing that I want to talk about here is the accuracy of these models and the token limit. So essentially what's going on here is that previously, OpenAI APIs, they couldn't accept large token windows of 1 million tokens, but now they can. And so what I like to think about as like 1 million as tokens in OpenAI is like tokens kind of represent the length of data that you can give it. So every token is approximately like 4 characters. So for example, like this, the word nano is like 1 token, right? And so essentially what this means is that you can insert in a lot of data and the output can be large. And so it can still process tons of data. If you're working with like a large PDF, like the world's longest book, like which is like probably the US tax code, for example, or if you're dealing with, I don't know, like large CSV files, or you're dealing with whatever, it's going to be able to handle that data much better. And the cool thing about it is like usually when you're dealing with a lot of data, the concern is that it might not always be accurate, right? You might be dealing with a lot of data, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be accurate when it's trying to actually process all that data. But with the 4.1 family, it is very accurate. And so with a graph like this, what's going on here is it's saying that like it's 100% successful in retrieving information when it comes to 1 million tokens down below here. And so in the release of this model, they actually had a video where they essentially, I'm just going to use words instead of tokens because I think it's a lot easier to understand, but they essentially had like 500,000 words, and they duplicated the 500,000 words and added one small sentence in there, and they're like, hey, find me the sentence in here. But they didn't even tell what the sentence was. And the AI model was able to go through those 500,000 words, and it was able to pull out the exact sentence that was different between the two. Like, that's pretty impressive stuff. Like 500,000 words is a lot to just find one tiny sentence that's slightly different. And so that's obviously really cool. It's really, really accurate when is processing a lot of data. The next thing that I want to talk about here is pricing. And so these are the prices for the new models from 4.1 to midi to nano. And essentially there's multiple different metrics for the pricing. There's the input, there's the cached input, output, and blended pricing. I also thought that this was kind of confusing the first time that I was reading it. So I just want to break this down a bit. The input is what you're sending. The output is what you're getting back. The cached input right here is essentially saying, like, if you've already processed some data, it's like the past messages, right? Those are just additional context that's feeding into the prompt. If there's past messages or past data that's already been processed, it's not going to cost you the same amount here. It's going to be slightly cheaper. And so these are the blended prices when you kind of input in everything into it. And if we were to compare that, for example, from like 4.1 mini to 4.0 or 4.0, it's significantly cheaper. Specifically, it's around 6-fold cheaper. So what that means is that when you're using these models, it's going to be way cheaper. So every $60 you spend on 4.0, you're now going to be spending $10 on 4.1 mini, which is obviously a lot of cost savings, especially if you're depending heavily on the ChatGPT ecosystem to process a lot of your tasks. Now, what this means in real life is, number one, it's going to be faster, lower latency. Number two, it's just going to have a better time understanding what it is that you're actually trying to do. And then number three is it's going to cost less money, which is a huge one because I don't think anyone wants to spend more money than they actually have to. So that's really nice as well. Practically speaking, take this voice AI agent here. One of the things that's coming in the future is voice AI calls. Now, at the time of this recording, voice AI is just not that good. If a business calls you with voice AI and you pick up, you're going to sit there being like, am I really, like, is this really AI? Like, is that, and then you're going to hang up immediately. You're not going to be able to hit the end now button faster, because if you're a customer, you probably don't want to talk to an AI robot on the other end of the phone. And you're going to, you're going to lose business on that. But in the future, this technology is going to be way faster. So when we're dealing with things like latency, for example, one of the key indicators as to determine whether it's a voice AI agent on the end of the phone is the fact that like you sometimes have to wait 5 to 10 seconds for it to respond. So I could be like, hello, and it would be like waiting 5-10 seconds to be like, hello, Jono, like, how are you? And it would obviously sound like super robotic. That was my like robotic voice. I don't think I did a good job, but but yeah, with models like this rolling out and future models, subsequent models and all that kind of stuff, it's obviously going to speed up the process of information on these calls, meaning that AI agents like this are going to be so much more practical in the future. Another thing that I think it could help is with AI agents in general. So maybe like this AI assistant, for example, maybe it's taking messages from you and it needs to be more accurate, or it needs to have a better understanding of instructions when you're sending messages, because you might be like in a rush, like frantically typing a message off and not thinking too hard about it. But with a model like this, it's going to be a lot better at processing the data properly, right? It's going to reduce hallucinations, which means that it's not going to like make up a story for you or make up information that's not actually legit or accurate. And it's not going to be overconfident. So if it really doesn't know something, it might just come back to you much more likely with saying, hey, sorry, I don't have the answer to that. And so these are the kind of improvements that we're talking about. But essentially, I'm just going to go ahead and download this blueprint here. And then I'm going to import that into my scenario here. So I'm going to hit the plus button. On Macs, I don't know if you guys find this at all too. Like, I'm a huge fanboy for Mac, but these download buttons just get in the way every single time I try and download things. And I just have a feeling everyone with a PC is watching this being like, bro, you just got to switch over to PC. It's about time. But I've been on Macs for like years now and I absolutely love it. So we can just, as a side note there, but we can just import in information like that JSON file that we just downloaded. So this is this AI agent that we're using, and this is using like a voice AI caller as well. And so cool thing about this is that we can essentially just switch over all of these models from 4.0 mini over to 4.1, and we can reap all the benefits of using that. And so all of a sudden, this model is going to be probably better at following instructions. It's going to hallucinate less. It's going to be faster. And it's going to be cheaper as well. And so overall, that's kind of the benefit of using a model like 4.1 or the whole family. And so that's essentially it in a nutshell. I'd love to hear what you guys think and what your thoughts are on this technology and what you think. Is it a huge improvement? Do you feel like it's not that big of an improvement? But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did find value in this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because if you like content like this, I'm sure you're going to like all the other videos I'm releasing all the time on how you can automate all different aspects of your life. And so with that being said, guys, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.